Hello, my name is Thompson. I work at Harmony Elementary School in Pickens County, Georgia, and this is a slideshow indicating the CRCT overview of data for the last 3 years. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you and welcome to Harmony Elementary School. I'd like to thank you for attending our annual curriculum night, and the following presentation has been prepared to show you some of the data based on the last 3 years here at Harmony Elementary from 2012, 2013, and 2014. Now, before we share this information data with you, I think it's very important that we talk about the purposes of this data. The data is for improvement purposes only. We must realize and agree that student learning problems are not problems with the students, but a learning deficiency in a specific content area. Also important to realize that the proper use of data does not give us the right to judge students, teachers, or to criticize the students and teachers based on what the data says. Harmony Elementary opened in 2006 and currently serves approximately 600 kids. Of these 600 kids, about 18% of these are students with special needs. The reason for the large subgroup of students with special needs is that Harmony is a centrally located school within the county, and all students throughout Pickens County who have severe needs or needs that would warrant their attendance at Harmony in the central location are bused and provided their services there. Also, 60% of the students at Harmony qualify as economically challenged or students on free and reduced lunch. This financial information qualifies Harmony as a Title I school, which it has been for the past 5 years. The student population of Harmony is also predominantly white. There are a small diversity of Hispanic students, black students, and students of mixed race. However, these numbers are so small that to include them in the subgroup as we talk about our data would be too identifying for them. Therefore, when we look at subgroups, we will only talk about all students, white, students with disabilities, and those who are economically challenged. When collecting and utilizing data, it's very important to understand why the data is being collected and what it's going to be used for. Here at Harmony, we hope to use the data to compare our students' test scores to the scores of similar students within our district as well as the state. Also, gaining an understanding of the areas and domains within the content areas will indicate what students need to focus on in order to be better learners and close achievement gaps. And the final reason that we want to use and collect data is to help teachers understand what they can do to improve their instruction, and gives them an insight of what will help their students become the most successful learners. The data we'll be looking at today talks about the CRCT scores from grades 3 through 5 within the time frame of 2012, 2013, and 2014. The first slide I've got here is the 2012 through 14 grades 3 through 5 CRCT scores for reading. Now, included in this chart are all subgroups. This information is aggregate data. It has not been divided into subgroups. This is based on whole student populations within the grade levels. Based on this knowledge, as you look at the red and the green bars, you can see that those areas are the proficient percentages of students within the reading content area. The blue indicates the students who did not meet or did not make it to the proficiency level based on the CRCT test scores. In looking at this chart, at no time throughout 2012 to 2014, in either grade level, 3rd, 4th, or 5th, did a does not meet percentage reach 10, which indicates that this is a pretty strong content area for the students here at Harmony. This slide, just like the reading slide that was prior to this one, shows a chart for 2012 through 2014 for grades 3 through 5, but for the content area of English Language Arts. Now, just like the previous slide, the blue bar indicates the students, or the percentage of students, who did not meet the proficiency level on the CRCT. While these numbers, or these percentages of do not meet, are slightly higher than the reading content area, they're still not above 15%, which is pretty incredible when you think about the student population for each grade level, as well as the time frame involved. The next content area we're going to look at is mathematics. This chart, again from 2012 to 2014, for all students in grades 3 through 5, indicates that there are a lot greater percentages of students who did not meet the proficiency level for mathematics. Now, these numbers are especially true for 3rd grade and a few for 4th and 5th. However, 3rd grade had the most does not meet in 2013. The next content area we're looking at is science. In science, most of the students are at a proficient level of meets or exceeds expectations. However, there is a greater percentage of does not meet in science than there was in English or reading. Social studies is the last content area of the CRCT. In this chart, we see that the percentage of does not meet in 2012 was greater than that of most other years, with the exception of 3rd grade, which had a higher does not meet category or percentage in 2013. However, based on all of the does not meet, the proficiency percentages of meets or exceeds is still higher than that in relation to the does not meet than math, but lower than reading, English language arts. Within each of the 5 content areas that are tested on the CRCT, reading, English language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies, are different domains or strands. So each content area is broken into these domains to give the teacher and the student a better understanding of what makes up the overall content area, and it breaks it down so that you can really focus and key in on what the students are struggling with and where the learning deficiency may lie. Why is this important? This data is vital because it allows the teacher to see exactly which part of the content area needs more clarification and understanding. This is an invaluable tool when looking at why a student may be performing below proficiency level, and then you can look at each domain and you see that they're proficient in all areas except for one. The teacher is able then to utilize strategies and differentiated instruction to focus on that domain to improve the overall content. In looking at the domains that comprise the reading content area, there are reading skills and vocabulary acquisition, reading for information or information and media literacy, and literacy comprehension. Now, these domains indicate or piece together like a puzzle to encompass the entire reading content area. This chart shows where the students in each grade level and each grade year, school year, scored on each of the domains. By looking at this chart, if you look in green where you have reading skills and vocabulary acquisition, that domain was scored at a greater proficiency percentage than any of the other 2. The next highest was literacy comprehensive, with the last or the lowest domain being reading for information or information and media literacy. That tells us that students may have a bit more focus in their reading for information or getting information from media literacy. The English language arts content area is only broken into 2 domains. The 2 domains are research and writing process and then grammar and sentence construction. Now, as we saw in a previous slide, the proficiency percentages for all students in English language arts is higher than those of math, science, and social studies. But based on this chart, we can see that some grade levels and some years, students had a greater proficiency for the research and writing process. In other years, they scored higher at the grammar and sentence construction. Now, while the proficiency levels are high, and both of these need to continue to be focused on within the English Language Arts curriculum, this data could be very interesting to look at and very useful for the teachers to determine which area the students might need a little bit more at before the test, or to gain an overall understanding. As we saw earlier, mathematics is the one content area of the CRCT where all students in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades scored the lowest or recorded the greatest percentage of the does not meet or lower than proficiency level. Now, the domains for math, according to the CRCT and the Georgia GPS standards, are math algebra, math geometry, measurement and data analysis, and number and operations. Just like we saw in the English Language Arts, some of these proficiencies within the domains are scattered and vary. It looks as though, for most cases, other than the 3rd grade 2012, the highest percentage of proficiency comes from math algebra, with the lowest, in several cases, being measurement and data analysis. What does this tell the teachers? This tells the teachers that there's a chance that based on their students of the year and through collecting data, they can focus more time on math geometry if needed, or measurement and data analysis. This is very important and instructive for the teachers as well as the students, because it pinpoints exactly what the students are struggling with and enables them to gain the understanding and spend more time focusing on what they don't know rather than repeating what they do. The science content area is divided into physical science, life science, and earth science. As you can see from the chart, life science in most cases has a higher proficiency level than physical or earth science, and in most cases earth science has the lowest proficiency level. Again, just like we discussed with the math slide previously, this information can tell the science teachers what the students are struggling with and where they need to focus more time to make them or help them understand the content area of science as a whole, rather than let them repeat things that they already know or just focus on things that they don't. The social studies content area is broken into an economics, government or civics, geography, and history. In each of these domains, there are standards within the Georgia Performance Standards as well as those questions that will be found on the CRCT from each of the domains, just like in the previous content areas. Based on this data, the domains of government/civics and geography are the most difficult for the students at Harmony Elementary. Now, knowing this data will allow our social studies teachers to spend a little more time and a little remediation if necessary to supplement those domains or strands within the content area of social studies. Now, when we talk about domains and strands, please know that I am not saying that the teachers are only going to look at this and say, okay, the students are struggling in civics, therefore all I'm going to teach for this 9 weeks is civics. That's not at all how this information will be used or would work. However, possibly during a center time or center activities, the teachers may include more things that would pertain to the strand of government and civics if that's where the students are having the most trouble. Okay, we've looked at the CRCT data for Harmony Elementary School, grades 3 through 5, and we've also looked at the domains of each content area and how our students at Harmony did and their proficiency percentages for each of those domains. Now, how does Harmony stack up against the Pickens County School District or the state of Georgia as a whole? And why is it important for us to see that? Well, by comparing those data, our school to those of the district and the state, we get to look at our small sample size of the kids only in our school in those grade levels versus the entire sample from the state or from all the schools within our district and our district data. This can be very helpful in letting us see how we compare based on the higher or larger sample size of the state and the district versus our smaller sample size of just our school. within the school you could have just one or two outlier scores that could skew the data, but having a larger population within the state and the district, that gives paints a clearer picture of where the percentages are, and we can see how we relate. Now, in these comparisons, does that mean that we are competing? Absolutely not. We are not competing with the other schools within the district or other schools within the state. We're simply looking for trends that may be having or occurring at Harmony that are also occurring within the state. We might have poor math scores one year, a huge decrease in proficiency percentage, but then we look at the state and the district data, and it appears that everyone did. All right, that information could tell us something other than that our students didn't participate very well on the test. It could tell us that something was happening within the test that affected not just our kids, but kids across the state. So we're looking for those trends, and bottom line, just like any other data usage, we're trying to help the students achieve more, and the teachers become better teachers through learning best practices and methods of instruction that will be more effective to the students. This slide shows the third grade scores for the school, the district, and the state. Now these numbers, this is from the year 2012, 2013, and 2014. And the data within compares the school to the state and the district level. The numbers are the percentage of students who meet or exceed on the CRCT test in those content areas, so we will call those the proficiency percentages. As you can see in 2012, the school and the district were pretty comparable to those of the state, so there really weren't any areas that we scored significantly lower or higher than the state of Georgia. In 2013, you can see the mathematics scores were down for Harmony Elementary and Pickens County, but also down from the state of Georgia, the state proficiency level from the previous year. Now, the red flag there, though, is that our Harmony math scores in 2013 were very much lower than those of the state or even the district. If you look back in 2014, Harmony had shown great improvement between 2013 and 2014, but we still weren't up at the state level, although the state level in mathematics increased also. So everyone showed some increases in that year, but we still weren't quite there. And other subject areas, as you can see, were pretty comparable to the state and the district. Here are some charts that go with the data that we looked at on the previous slide. Now, rather than looking at the numbers, we're looking now at a bar graph with color-coded bars. If you look at the blue, that is the Georgia percentage of meets or exceeds. The red is the Pickens County district meets or exceeds, and the green is Harmony Elementary meets or exceeds. Now, going visual in this manner, rather than just looking at the numbers, it gives us a chance to see how we truly do stack up against the state and the district. And as you can tell and see, in most cases, we're fairly even. Now, 2013, that was the year in third grade that we were less comparable in most subject areas. Just as we had looked at the third grade data on the previous two slides, now we're going to look at comparable data or comparison data amongst the school, district, and state for fourth grade. Now, the school and district percentages of scores are comparable to the state in 2012 in all areas, with the district and the school scoring much higher than the state percentage in all content areas. Now, reading, language arts, and social studies were the most impressive, as our school scored significantly higher than the state percentage of proficiency. In 2013, Harmony Elementary and Pickens County also scored higher than the Georgia average in all content areas. Now, in 2014, while Harmony did outscore the state in some content areas, the percentage of proficient scores on mathematics had dropped significantly from 2013 to 2014, and it was almost 10% lower than the proficiency percentage of the state of Georgia. Now, this, as I mentioned on the first slide, data is used to paint the picture and give us a clear image of what's happening. Not necessarily, reasons why it's happening. That's to use the data to come up with those things later. But as we look at this slide, we see that not only does the data have to be bad. If you look at 2012-2013, Harmony Elementary scored way higher than the state in many areas. But then in 2014, we saw a drastic drop in the math scores. This data here will give a red flag to the data team as, okay, what changed from 2013 to 2014, and what can we do to remedy such change? Here we have visual representation of the charts from the previous slide. Again, we've simply taken the numbers and placed it into a bar graph format with each color-coded bar representing a group, whether it be the state of Georgia in the blue, the Pickens County School District in red, or Harmony Elementary in green. Now, as we see this, we can see in 2014 specifically in the reading and English language arts, the state, the county, and the school are all pretty comparable as far as score goes. Now we can see in 2014 in the mathematics, we can see that visual image of the almost 10% decrease from the state average that we had talked about on the previous slide, as well as in the 2013 data, you can see the mathematics data that is higher than the state by 10% or more, as well as science and social studies. So by making charts like this, it makes it easier for us to understand the data and see how we stack up, especially when comparing our school to the district and the state levels. We now move on to looking at the numbers of the school district and state for 5th grade. Again, we're dealing with 2012, 2013, and 2014. As you can see, in 2012 and 2013, Harmony's proficiency percentage was comparable to the district and the states in most content areas, with the exception to the content area of math. The math percentages were at least 6% lower than those of the state in 2012 and 2013. But in 2014, Harmony Elementary scored higher than both the Pickens County level and the state of Georgia proficiency levels in all content areas, with the most impressive being the math score at almost 7% higher than a state average. Again, this shows that data can be different year to year based on student populations, based on performance standards, and instruction methods within the school. Here we have our bar graphs that represent the number data on the previous slide for 5th grade students and their comparison with the Pickens County School District and the state of Georgia. Now, as mentioned, in 2012 and 2013, all test scores and content areas were pretty much on par with one another, with Harmony being a little bit lower than the district and the state level in mathematics in 2013 and 2012. But in 2014, Harmony had scored higher than all the state averages and slightly lower than the district in social studies, but still higher than the state. So we can see through these bar graphs that for the most part we seem to be on par with the district level and the state level, and also that we see that we scored slightly higher or slightly lower, but we're still in the general neighborhood in most content areas, especially in 2014. So what does this data tell us as we compare our school, Harmony Elementary, to Pickens County and to the state of Georgia? Well, this tells us that Harmony scores are close to the larger groups, and in some cases were actually higher. And it's important when we look at the populations that we realize that the district population is greater than that of the school, and that the state data is significantly greater than that of even the district, especially the school. It also shows us that while we've seen that mathematics seems to be one of our weakest content areas, it's not just the weakest content area for us at Harmony, but it's also a state and district weak area, and that the scores are usually less in mathematics than the other content areas. It also tells us that our reading and English language arts scores, those are the content areas that receive the highest score at Harmony Elementary, in Pickens County, and the state of Georgia. So just like math seems to be the weakest of the content areas for all of us, including the state, it seems like reading and language arts seems to be the one that we're most proficient in. Now, as it appears that the math content area is the weakest of all content areas for us at Harmony Elementary School, I think it's important that we explore the math data just a little bit more. Now, the following line graphs that we'll see on the next couple of slides indicate scores from grades 3 through 5 from 2012 to 2014. Now, I included on this slide the same graph from earlier that just shows our proficiency percentages from those years and all those grade levels as well. Now, as we disaggregate the data, which we'll do on the following line graphs, we divide our groups into our student population into subgroups. Now, because of our subgroups limitations within Harmony, and that we don't have enough students of different ethnic backgrounds to create their own subgroups, our subgroups will consist of all students as the whole, white students, which will make up the majority of the whole but not all, students with disabilities, and students who are economically disadvantaged, or our free and reduced lunch students. Okay, this slide represents the 2012 and 2013 mathematics proficiency percentages based on subgroups. Now, I need to let you know that at the time of this presentation, the 2014 data was unavailable. It had not been made available from the state. We have the overall scores, but we don't have the subgroup scores yet. So in 2012, you can see that of all students, 80.5% reached the meets or exceeds proficiency area on the CRCT, with the white students or white subgroup at 81.2%. And the students with disability had a proficiency rating or percentage of 56.9%. And the economically disadvantaged, which, as mentioned earlier, makes up 60% of our whole student population at Harmony Elementary, those economically disadvantaged were at 76.1%, scoring at a proficient level. In 2013, our entire third grade population was at 79.8%, with our white students at 79.2%, our students with disabilities at 53%, and our economically disadvantaged at 75.5%. Now, in 2013, you can see that all percentage levels are slightly lower than that of 2012, but that, again, when we deal with small populations, it could just be that the numbers of students were different from one year to the next. But this data shows that we have a pretty consistent trend among the two school years. Just as we decided that mathematics was our area of greatest need for improvement, reading and English language arts, those are the content areas where we have the most success here at Harmony Elementary. So just like we looked at our math data a little bit extra, we're going to look at our reading and English language arts as well. These two slides just indicate the previous graphs, or bar graphs, that showed the grade levels 3, 4, and 5 with the corresponding year, and we've color-coded the does not meet percentage with the reading or the exceeds. And again, with the reading, with the meets or exceeds, those are the proficiency percentages for our school. Alright, the same subgroups were used for these line graphs as we used for our math line graphs. We've got our all student population for the grade levels, then we have our white student population, our student with disabilities, and our economically disadvantaged. As you can see in 2012, in the reading proficiency, the students with disability seemed very much lower than those of the regular population and the white population, from 94.2 and 94.4 to 82. Now, it's important to note that while these numbers are drastically different, this is still a really high percent of meeting and exceeding, especially with our students with disabilities at 82%. If we look at 2013 to compare, the number of students with disabilities at meet and exceeds is actually lower than that of the previous year, 75.8. However, the way the graph has been aligned, it looks as though the data is not that significantly different. I'm sorry, it looks like the data is more significantly different than it actually is. When we look at our English language arts proficiency from 2012, we find that we're at 89.3% for all students, 89.1% for white, 64.5% for students with disabilities, and 85.6% with our economically disadvantaged. As we compare that to the 2013 scores of 88.3% for all students, 87.6% for the white students, 62.1% for students with disabilities, and 84.8% for economically disadvantaged. Just like with the math data, it seems as though the ELA and the reading data pretty much is staying consistent from year to year. The thing about consistent, though, is if we're consistently higher in reading and language arts, then we'll stay higher English reading and English language arts and lower at math. So we have to look at this data to come up with solutions on how to improve our consistency and to start a new trend and consistent patterns. Based on the data within this presentation, it's pretty clear that reading, English, and language arts are the content areas that Harmony Elementary students score the highest on, and math is the content area that we score the lowest on. And what does that mean? That means that the English, language arts, and reading are the strongest areas of our school, and the math is the weakest. And because of this, as we move forward with our action plan and our school improvement plans and meetings, we need to really work and focus on increasing mathematics scores. That has to be a concern for us at the school so that we can raise those proficiency percentages up to where the reading and English language arts proficiency levels lie. So we know that based on the data that we have a strong area in reading and language arts and a weak area in math, but what does it all mean? Alright, what it means is that Harmony Elementary knows now where our weaknesses lie. And again, student performance weaknesses are not weaknesses within the students or weaknesses of the teacher, but they're weaknesses in a content area. So we have to think of different ways and strategies to enforce that content area to increase proficiency within it. Okay, it also means that Harmony Elementary needs to place a little more focus on improving those mathematics scores than any other content area to have the greatest impact on the CRCT scores for upcoming years. Who can help make these improvements? Everyone can help make these improvements. It's going to be a collaborative team effort. Has to be made in order to improve the mathematics CRCT scores as well as to maintain the high scores in the reading, language arts, science, and social studies. Teachers can benefit and use this data. They can use the disaggregated data with the subgroups and the domain and strand data to determine which components of mathematics need the most focus. Students can help improve their test scores by keeping their assignments up to date and ask questions if they do not understand a concept. Oftentimes when introducing new things, teachers, we all know that students learn in different ways, and if we present the material a certain way, a student may be more apt to grasp onto it. So teachers can really benefit by using different teaching strategies, and students can benefit by paying attention in class, working hard on their assignments, finding the ways that makes it easier for them to understand and learn the data, and ask their teachers to help present it in that way so that they can be more successful. Parents, you all can be more successful too by working with your students at home and supporting the teaching strategies that work. Parent-teacher conferences. Touch with the teacher to find out what's going to help little Johnny learn the easiest and the best, and helping him at home learn in the same type ways and environments. The stakeholders in the community can also support our efforts by recognizing the need for a safe, nurturing school environment to improve our test scores. That's going to improve the confidence within the students in the building as long as they feel safe and nurtured. And our stakeholders in our community can help out with that, as well as our Board of Education, our curriculum directors, can find and maybe purchase the curriculums that will be the best and most appropriate for us to improve. Okay, I'd now like to open the floor for any questions that you all might have for me. And also on the screen you can see my contact information. If you ever have any questions that you don't have now and you think of one later, you can always email or call me. Okay, if there are no questions, I'd like to thank you all for attending our curriculum night here at Harmony Elementary School. I hope that this information has been beneficial to you, as I know it will be very beneficial to the teachers and students here at our school. Thank you again. Have a great evening.